thanks to cooperation with the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team, we've got some new track limits, Lewis. I mean, you used to see drivers really clattering the curb through that chicane at Variante Alta. Not so anymore. You have to be a little bit more precise, have to be a little bit more careful with how you decide to try and attack those curves.
Yeah, and I've not raced Imola on iRacing in a long time. I say long time. I'm literally talking 6 months. Massive time. I didn't realise the track limits had changed that aggressive. Which, to be fair, they kind of needed to. It was because it was in real world motorsport. You kind of have to be a little bit more careful over the curbs because if you attack them too much, you're going to break your suspension and such. And whilst we have suspension braking in one way, not typically in an up and down motion for courtesy of abusing curbs too much. But now, if there's other ways to essentially force that, then let's try and force it. So I'm kind of glad to hear that. Hopefully, it won't cause too many problems through the race, but I'm sure we'll see.
This is the 4th place car in qualifying. Oh, that's a bit of a mistake through the first chicane at Variante Tamburello. Lydia Jokumsdottir will take the tow back to pit lane, and it's the beauty of online racing. No matter how big the incident, no matter where the incident, you can always recharge yourself up. And the other thing, of course, is no damage bills at the end of a weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we were just actually having this discussion on another broadcast about the idea that once you've had a big crash, yes, you might have, like, at most, as I was saying, if the wheel's been ripped out of your hands, right, in a large crash, you might have a little bit of, a bit of pain in your hand, but outside of that, you're fine. You're all well and good. You don't have, $100,000 repair bill. You don't have to walk back to a team of mechanics and explain what's happened. You just go, right, that's me, tried that, I'll escape, and I'll give it another go. It means that you can basically abuse the limit of the racetrack so far, because obviously there's no real risk in practice of doing so. And it does mean that in the race, it's almost you have to be even more precise in the sim world than in real life, because you've got to take all of the available track, whereas in real life sometimes they won't take that risk, whereas you're going to have to.
Yeah, we saw this, for example. I think back to, you got to commentate on Virtual Le Mans just recently, the biggest in terms of the driver lineup, the viewership, the biggest sim race that you will likely have across of the year. And you look at Max Verstappen's pole position, or second place lap, I should say, in qualifying, and there was a great comparison between his lap and James Baldwin's lap. And you're right, you mean, for example, on the long run down the Mulsanne in Le Mans, the fact that in the sim you can run yourself out a little bit wider, take the risk over the bumps that you would just never do in the real world, because if you get it wrong, well, that's your race over. That might be your weekend over, your entire Le Mans over.
Well, like you say, particularly, I think it's definitely more so with qualifying than it is with the race, because you're absolutely right. If you take those risks in qualifying at Le Mans, or qualifying in a standard race, right, like what we're seeing here, if you take those risks, the car might be written off for the whole weekend, and that's it. Your race is done, and even though you're kind of like, yeah, but it's a different session, well, it doesn't matter in real life. If you can't rebuild the car, you can't race. That's just how it is. Whereas in sim racing, you can escape and go straight back out in the same session. Obviously, it depends entirely on session. Now, I think one thing that we probably should get ahead of, Arjuna, is the fact that name pronunciation is really terrible here. Yes. Sorry, lads. But we are on board with Alexandra Vicious. It's an attempt.
Not bad.
Definitely not an Icelandic name. That is a Lithuanian name. You can very easily tell.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this competition. I mean, I love this idea. It's like a mini Olympics, right? You have all these different sports. You welcome people from around the world. Yes, you mostly see Icelandic names and people competing, but you've got athletics, weightlifting, darts, and then of course now they're embracing esports. We had the inaugural running of this last year, 2 different races, one at Le Mans with an LMP2 car, and then with the MX-5 car at a track which was not revealed until the day of the race, which makes it that much better in terms of the excitement and the quality of practice, something we've seen, for example, with some of the VCO ran series of late. But it's just that good idea, right? We've seen sim racing be embraced by the Olympics in one regard, but it's something entirely different here.
this, like I said, I mean, I've always said that with racing and stuff in sim racing, if there's one thing, genuinely, if there was one major thing that I would change in sim racing, it's reducing practice. And there is only really one proper way to reduce practice, and that's to announce a track last minute. You basically randomize it and be like, right, Joe, we're going to race here. For me, it's not ideal because then you can't like, from our point of view,
yes.
We can't be like, oh, join us as we'll be racing at Spa for the next. We can't like dramatize it a little bit more. But for the actual racing, 9 times out of 10 it's better because you have to drive. You have to actually drive rather than just relying on whatever practice you've done, which, let's be honest, in sim racing is always a large amount.
Yeah, I mean, there was a great discussion about this recently at the end of last year with a great article on racer.com. Where there's another race happening today. It just happens to be the start of the Porsche Esports Super Cup, the iRacing World Championship, the top level of road racing on this iRacing service. And we're at this point now, this inflection point, where sim racing is basically full-time for a lot of these people. You think about the facilities that different teams are working on. You've got the Coanda team house, for example. Now they've added to that with a team facility separate from the house to incorporate even more. Altus Esports, they're an Australian team. They've got a team house as well. They're working on construction of their dedicated sim facility. The Apex Racing team, they're working on their overall sim racing facility. It's not just going to be for the drivers, it's going to be for fans, it's going to be for their customers, people who want to try the latest and greatest in hardware, for broadcasting as well. And I'm not sure if you knew this, Lewis. I might be giving you some breaking news, but Redline's got something in the works as well.
See, I did not know that. The Apex one, I'm very intrigued. I'm like, I think I might take a trip to Corby. I've got some family that aren't too far away. I'll be heading over in that direction to check out what's going on. I think it's the way sim racing's moving. It is all becoming. It's weird because it's kind of like everyone's just like, the virtual world, the virtual world, the virtual world. Now it's just sort of like, right, and now we're all going into the real world, at least in a team house environment. We're all moving that way, which I think's very interesting. But this is the moving wave of sim racing, which is almost unstoppable these days. And this affects every level of sim racing as a form of sport, essentially.
I've heard some counter arguments against the team house thing, and I'm curious what your take would be on this, Lewis. And that if your entire life is sim racing, how do you decompress, right? And that's one thing that you kind of see in other esports even as well. The fact that, Counter-Strike, Valorant, a lot of them have the team facilities, but now team houses, but now they're moving to team facilities. So people still have personal space, but they have a common area where they they can come to and they can work together. Is that Hakan Jokkelson, who's made a bit of a mess of the hairpin down at Tosa, lights up the tires and will get pointed in the right direction. But again, I think it's important to have that delineation, right? Just like regular people with their jobs, you want to go to work, and that's why these last couple of years have been tough for so many. The fact that barrier between work and personal has become so blurred. Yeah,
honestly, if there is one thing, at least even from personal experience of knowing from our commentary perspective, we work a fair amount as commentators and stuff, and then when you stop commentating, it's like, I'm in the same room. You need to be able to separate the work from the life. Like they do need to be separate. I mean, we've all heard stories from the likes of Dota and League and all that lot of basically like it is their life, right? And that is not a joke. Like it is, you're expected to wake up, basically play, and then go back to bed, right? Like you do it all day. When anytime a new like WoW expansion or whatever comes out, that's what I know is slightly different in that sense. But still, people genuinely like they will do it 24/7. It was I can't remember what they called it, but it's a form of basically like you play for 8 hours and then you're off, and then someone else jumps in and then basically like hot seating. They play for the next 8 hours and stuff. Whilst all that is great, the idea of basically living out your dream job, etc., there does need to be a separation. That's why I think like the way that Commander are going about it with the facility and Avex and a lot of actually making a place to go and work, not a house. You come over, you pay your taxes, you live in a house yourself, you rent yourself, but then you go to work as if it's a job. It helps with the mindset so much.
Yeah, and we bandy about the idea of finally being able to do a race bot house, which I would love, but I think it would be important to still have that same separation, right?
Given a race bot studio.
Yeah, we need the race bot studio with housing nearby that we can all still, decompress and maybe even some rigs. That would be lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd to be honest, I get slapped.
Yeah, well,
especially if he goes there.
Exactly. We have an iRacing world champion as our big boss, so that's always going to be something. Porsche making a bit of a mess down through Aqua Minerale, and this is Henrik Haraldsson, who is the owner of Icelandic GT Academy, but he's also raced in the Icelandic Rally Championship in 2020 and has competed both as a driver and as a co-driver, which I find fascinating.
I love rally, right? I really enjoyed watching Monte Carlo. Who didn't? Anyone who watched Monte Carlo, right? I mean, Seb versus Seb, like the genuine, the very best at the top. But I've always said that co-drivers don't get enough praise because that is a hard job. I've always said, learning different aspects of racing, i.e. racing in GTs, racing in touring cars, racing in open wheelers, rallycross, rally, all of that. To be a complete driver, you need to learn all of it. Hadn't really thought about the idea of potentially even being a co-driver is actually a critical part of that because you have to trust someone else.
Well, here's the thing. I think drivers are, in some ways, control freaks, right? They want everything to go their way and no other way. You can't do that as a co-driver.
Yeah, you sat there. You sit there. Honestly, I don't know how they do it. By the way, you sit there and you read. You're reading. Obviously, it's written very big, but you're essentially reading while someone is launching it around. So, anyone go and get Game of Thrones and try and sit in the back of a car and read it on the back of a motorway, right? It's hard work, right? And you're being lobbed around the French countryside or wherever. And you're expected to read from the road book as to what's coming up next. And the timing is everything. And I don't know how you would do it. But essentially, you're no longer in control.
Yes.
You just read.
That was a great. I don't know if you've seen this, but Petter Solberg got to be a co-driver recently. Don't know if you saw the clip.
No, I didn't. Was it to his son?
No. Oh, can you imagine though? The father-son dynamic there.
Yeah, Ollie Solberg, the Swede, who, of course, Swede, i.e. on where he was born. You can tell as soon as he speaks. You're like, that's Norwegian. You can just tell.
Henrik Haraldsson goes up into 6th. I think still just trying to build up the speed, build up the momentum. That looks like another issue for Jochen Stottier. Let's see if we can get a replay of that one in this rather tricky track. I think very much underrated in some parts of the sim racing community, Lewis, because of its rather difficult nature to try and make passes happen at.
It can be tricky. This is why I like the lack of practice kind of comes into it, is it opens up the potential for moves. That was just a little bit too much speed going into Tozer and trying to carry it out from Haraldsson. You can kind of see it once again. I think either maybe just shifted on the apex or just got on the power a little bit too much on the apex of the corner, and it just goes. It can snap quite aggressively. Aqua Minerale though, running through there. Great complex of corners.
And looks like pretty steady there for Haraldsson as he works his way in towards that chicane where, watch those anti-cut curves. Look at him, he clatters them on the inside, but a bit more ginger through the second part of the corner. Works his way down into the final couple of lefts. Tricky downhill braking section here where you get the car turned in, use that kink to line yourself up for the first part of the corner. Slides his way through the short little run down into the final. Use a bit of the AstroTurf on the outside to maximize the momentum, and across the line does look as though it's going to be an improvement A 1:42.726, the benchmark for him to beat. It's a 1:41, except that lap did not count. And that's one thing to note here on iRacing is if you fall afoul of the track limits, well, they are very, very strict.
Yeah, that was tight. Because the thing is, like I say, it's a smooth lap. What I'm liking seeing is very clearly, or at least from my perspective, that Hamilton's not really done any practice coming into this. But you can see this is absolutely the right mentality to have, or even if it's just getting used to things in the qualifying session, different conditions. Attacking everything at a speed where it's savable, right? It's not blisteringly quick, but it doesn't need to be right now. You're building your speed through the laps. The tyres in these cars are normally actually quite good to do a good few laps, as we'll see. This is up with our leader, Jakob Behrens. And there was a bit of a spin down into turn one. I'm going to assume there's a bit of grass touching. Yep. Yeah, easy peasy. That'll happen in the race.
Yes. Oh, no. If we don't see that at least once, I would be completely shocked. Just right on board, and you can see it's wanting to maximize the entry to the corner, but by the time you know you've made a mistake, it's already too late.
But this is why putting in banker laps in the early parts of the session is so critical, because if you open up the session, at least in the first 10 minutes, get a lap onto the board, which is decent, right? Doesn't have to be the fastest lap time you could do around here, but just a decent lap time. And clearly Behrens is putting in quite a good one, because it's over half a second away from the front of the field. So clearly quite a comfortable one. What it does is it actually gives you an extra boost of confidence, because it means for the next few laps you can try and take more speed, more track, more everything. You can try and abuse this a little bit more, because if it doesn't work, well, you've still got a good lap time to fall back on. If it does work, well, you're starting to scare the rest of the field now, as we'll focus on Jökulsson running through Variante Villeneuve up towards Tosa. Haraldson did improve, by the way.
I heard that. Yeah, I heard it in the background. Another issue at the same corner for the number 7, Tosa. It's treacherous, one of the slowest points on the track, and it's really just one of those corners which finding the rhythm can be tricky, because you've got that chicane that leads into it, so getting the right line on entry can be important, and then going up the hill, you think you can attack the corner with the power getting dropped off, as that's Jökulsson who takes the tow back to pit lane. Here comes the number 4 car to start another lap of his own. He's about 1 second behind that car in third. One thing I'll note as well, Lewis, small fields don't always mean boring races. I've commentated on races with less than 10 cars before, which have been absolutely electric.
I think the best example was when I was commentating with Summer Aurora, and we were doing the SEO Sprint Challenge, which had 11 cars. I mean, yes, it's more than what we have in this, but we had 11 cars, and we were racing around, Monza, which did help because big slipstream and stuff. But still, it was 11 cars, and honestly, it was one of the better races that I've seen. It was frantic, it was crazy, and it was proof that you just don't need that many cars. We've still got a couple of cars on here that are very, very close. Benedictson's potentially, I'd say this is asking for maybe a little bit from Benediction here, but half a second in the race, if you're in the slipstream, you can find that time. You can keep up, because you've got a target directly ahead of you to be able to sort of find. So there is that. Also, we don't know how many lap times maybe have been invalidated or just left a little bit more on the table. Also, Alexander Vicious, Joachimsdotter and Haraldson are all within half a second here, 4th, 5th and 6th. And there is also a 7th car.
Although you say that maybe we'll see the slipstream come into play. This is not a track where you necessarily think the slipstream is going to be a huge, huge factor. It's to the line. 41.225 is the previous best. He won't improve on that, but he's got 1 lap left, because when the checkered flag flies, you're allowed to finish the lap that you're on, but that will be it.
And obviously we've got a 45-minute race coming up now, with a 45-minute race in GTEs. No pit stop. It's essentially a sprint race. It's straight up, get to the checkered flag for these drivers. In that sense, don't need to think outside of the box on strategy. It's just about what you do on the circuit, which is what we want.
It's what we want. We will wait and see how hard the fight will be, or if Jakob Behrens will be able to pull away at the front of this field, because he is looking good. He's not bad in terms of his iRating as well. We've got a couple of rookies. Of course, those members would be brand new to iRacing, maybe have some sim racing experience on other platforms under their belt, but all platforms do things very differently at times. Understanding what the car is doing around you will be crucial. Behrens has 3,400 iRating, Lewis. Not bad. Not bad.
That's not. It's not indeed. I think you know, with being a rookie, to go back to that one of like some people jumping on and being basically completely new to the platform, to go straight into a race, that's brave. I will straight up. I mean, I respect that, to just be able to get, at least just be brave enough to give it a go. And sometimes you just need to do so. But that is a brave call just to go to, because from someone who has driven on multiple different simulators and stuff, it is not an easy transition. It's not just because, well, yeah, but cars drive good, so I go fast. It's not like that at all.
Although, having said that, there will be a fun little segment before the BMW Sim GT Cup race tomorrow from the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. BMW Sim Ignition, the pre-show for that. Enzo Benito, who we saw this past weekend in the Esports Racing World Cup, competed across 3 different platforms in 3 consecutive days, said that he just got used to it at this point, Lewis. I mean, we're talking, of course, about a driver that competed in the F1 Esports Championship from its inception, so a long time ago. But I guess that's something you just overcome. You adapt.
Well, one of the other drivers that was in that interview, another person who's raced across multiple different platforms, was Kevin Siggy. Don't typically see him on iRacing, but can race on it and has proven that a few times before. But he's one of these drivers that races on ACC, on RF2, on whatever. Like, if you give it to them, they'll race it. Now, my point from that is, most people that are like, oh no, I won't race on iRacing or on this other platform because I'm not very quick on it and I struggle on it. It's kind of like, well, yeah, but the more you do it, by exposure, you learn.
Yes.
And so, to be honest, sometimes you do just need to force it. It's like I say, I'm terrible in GT3s as a driver. I'm really bad at GT3s. So, how do you get better in GT3s? We're driving them. It's not just going to magically happen.
Right.
And by driving and by learning, you end up getting better in GT3s or in, you know, another simulator in that example, and it will make you a better driver overall.
And that's why I think of someone like Niels Naujoks, right? Who we usually see in Assetto Corsa Competizione, especially nowadays, but we saw during the VCO Pro Sim series, got to come and join iRacing and have a bit of fun and didn't do too badly. I think that's being fair.
Yeah, he did struggle in the VCO Pro Sim Season 1. I think he did.
I don't even think he did Season 1.
I think he did one round. I distinctly remember. I think it might have been Snetterton. He did pretty well. I know he definitely did Season 2 because I remember Road America not going very well.
Gotcha.
But like I say, sometimes you just need to jump in and give it a go.
Give it a go. Well, I tell you what, it is time to take a look at the starting grid for today's action, for what is going to be a 45-minute race here. Probably about 26, 27 laps at Imola. It is going to be a fascinating one, and here's how they will line up by virtue of qualifying. Jakob Behrens on pole position will be alongside Håkan Jokkelsen, while row number 2 sees Henrik Haraldsson and, well, you said, excuse the pronunciation, but Alexander Vicious with Bendixen.
Okay, that's good enough for me.
I was just trying not to completely butcher it. Bendixen and Joachim Stottier, the final row of this grid.
Now, there might be someone else on the grid, because there were 7 on the server, but I think, because Vihansen was also on the server, although I'm not sure if they're still on and certainly not gridding. I do believe it will be the 6 of them. The one yet to grid is Jakob Behrens.
Are we in for a standing start here? I think we might be.
That is a great question.
You don't typically associate these GTE cars, or indeed any GT cars, with standing starts. But if that's what we're in for, who can get these cars off the line the best? This might be where Jakob Behrens comes unstuck, and, well, we've got 6 cars locked and loaded. I don't think we're going to see Vilhelmsen take to the grid here.
No, indeed not. And like you say, with everyone coming onto the grid, if this is going to be a standing start, this is going to be a little bit tricky down to turn one. But this is where it's the opportunity for someone like Benediktsson, someone like Jökulsson, to go and grab the race lead early.
Well, can anyone stop Behrens? I mean, that's probably the question here, Lewis. 6/10 clear of the field in qualifying.
Certainly is. I think we're about to get underway though. Not sure where these lights are holding off at, but Behrens on pole position from Benediktsson, from Jökulsson, from Alexandra Vicious. It's always a tricky run because the thing is, T1 Tamarello always narrows so much right into that braking zone, right into that point as you want to get onto the brakes, you want to go for the move. And not only that, but it's also kinking over to the left-hand side as well.
Still got about 20 seconds before the lights will illuminate and we get ready to race at this wonderful, just under 5 kilometer Imola circuit. Played host to Formula One for so many years. It was graced with Formula One action last year once more. What is in store for Imola? At least for now though, it's all eyes focused on the Reykjavik International Games and 2022's Digital Motorsports Cup. The winner will walk away our champion. But we're ready to race here in Imola. Lights illuminate and we are underway. Behrens gets a good launch, 3 wide back in the Packers. Cars struggling to get off the line. Lights are flashing already as to the inside. Benediktsson had a look, but Behrens will control the field in towards turn number 1.
Yeah, Joachimsdotter gaining a couple of positions there up into 4th position in the background, but potentially going to be under a pressure from Alexandra Vicious down into Villeneuve as race leaders are very close. They're side by side in the background. I said you don't need too many cars to make a good show. And I think Joachimsdotter's run wide. Oh, and there's contact in the background. Just caught that. That was definitely Alexandra Vicious and Haraldson. And a spin as well from Jökulsson. Oh, goodness.
Well, they're going side by side up the hill in towards Piratella. The Ferrari's got the nose inside. Behrens under fire. He'll hold on for now, but he's not going to be allowed to run away with this one. This might be a closer fought fight than we were expecting.
A lot of damage on Alexandra Vicious's car after the contact a bit earlier on. Right rear is scraped up. Haraldson has already towed back to pit lane. And Joachimsdotter also with a fair amount of damage on. The other one's still going onto the racetrack. You can see Haraldson returning to pit lane there, but our battle for the race lead is on. Now, we said slipstream, maybe not necessarily one of those things that we focus on around Imola, but the thing is the start-finish straight around here is so incredibly long. If Benediktsson can just nail the next corner, might actually be in with a potential chance to go and take the race lead.
And that's a look
that was not pretty.
Yeah, no, it was just the Corvette ran off a little bit wide with the Ferrari, and from there got checked up and on the gravel, just didn't have the grip and slid into the path of Haraldson. Porsche and Corvette, significant damage for the both of them. For the race lead though, no move just yet, but look how close the two Ferraris are running. You can stay pretty close to one another. These GTEs, compared to a GT3 car, Lewis, have just that little bit more downforce.
Yeah, obviously it does mean that they're spitting out a fair amount of dirty air from the rear, but it's not as extreme as some would want you to believe. I love hearing, it's a little bit wide there from Benediktsson. I think Benediktson's going to be pushing really, really hard to keep up with Jakob Behrens right now. But I love hearing from drivers being like, oh no, I went off because I was in his dirty air. I was like, not in a GTE, you didn't. Like, no, you can keep up. You can keep up in a GTE. You just got to be mindful.
It's like talking about dirty. I think the worst is in GT4s, which
yeah,
they're not designed to work with downforce. They are very much more limited by the tire life and tire grip, I should say, than anything else. But I was in his dirty air. No, you weren't. You just made a mistake.
Touring car racing. I've had someone tell me that they went off because they were in my dirty air, and I was like,
No, you just forgot that it was front wheel drive and understeered yourself wide.
Yeah, it's like I'm sure you did there, buddy. I will say that not from a dirty air perspective, but when you're driving, when you're sat directly behind someone, it can be actually a lot harder than you'd think. Like, people in V8 supercars and stuff make it look so easy when they're sat right on the rear end of another car. It's not that easy because you're basically blind to the rest of the circuit.
Some of the best racing on the planet, V8 supercars. Look how close Benediktsson is keeping this. He'll take the fastest lap of the race, but again, that's not necessarily meaningful. Shows his nose, but Behrens covers him off. This is shaping up to be a rather fascinating fight. Benediktsson, a former Assetto Corsa Competizione driver, he's getting to grips here in iRacing pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's, like I say, jumping platform to platform. Toes a little bit defensive from Jakob Behrens, might run a little bit wide, and the second apex is going to be picked up by Benediktsson on the run all the way up the hill towards Piratella. Not really a corner that I would go for me with Piratella. It's a little bit too quick, a little bit too blind, and always the car on the inside is going to wash out.
But Behrens,
attack Minerale, a bit wide from Behrens.
Behrens made a small mistake, got a little bit loose. They're side by side on the entry, a little bit of door banging, but they're keeping it clean. We said you didn't need many cars, you just need 2 to have a good fight, and the inside line goes to the 16 as they come into the chicane.
Yeah, you've got to be wise here, Behrens. You're not really going to hang it out there, and is wise to it. Knows he's got the pace right now, allows Benediktsson to take over the race lead. And we did say, just because that pole time was set by 0.6 of a second in the favour of Jakob Behrens, does not mean this race is going to be an easy one. Already losing it just a couple of laps into this race, Benediktsson at the front.
And he was feeling some pressure, because that was some pretty good driving from the number 16 and Benediktsson to not just keep close, but to be showing the nose at the right place at the right time, because that's the mental warfare of motorsports, be it virtual, be it in the real world. It's about putting the pressure on and trying to make the driver in front of you crack under that pressure.
It's honestly not an easy thing. It's about knowing who you're up against. And I was talking to a couple of friends about this on Wednesday night, just after doing some racing, which is, it's about knowing your opponent. And knowing what they're like, reading their body language, seeing what they're driving like. Are they driving a little bit frantically and all over the place? Because if they are, then the looks, the eyeing them up into corners works. You're not committing to anything. You're trying to get them to look into their mirrors and drive offline. I've said before, in touring car racing, honestly, the easiest move you ever have to make are the ones that you don't make at all, because they've made a mistake. And it does really ring true. And so in that sense, what I'm getting at is, looking is great, but you've got to know who you're doing it against. If you're just looking down the inside of everyone, then everyone's going to, it's like the boy who cried wolf. No one's going to care.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you've got to pick and choose your battles and only do it at certain times. Honestly, that is a bit of a juggling act and requires a bit of experience and knowledge to get right.
I like that analogy. I'm going to steal it.
Yeah, that's fine. You do whatever you want, man.
Down the hill.
You stolen many things from me like that. That's
yes, that's true. I see where we're going.
Mad shade.
I see where we're going. You're just mad you didn't win the award this year.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay.
Exactly.
You can have it back in 2022.
Oh, that's nice. Did you not think that Lorenzo's going to steal it from us?
Lorenzo's Mike is going to steal it.
Yeah, absolutely. If he paints a goal, it might be all right. For Behrens, though, right, oh, go on, no, carry on.
No, I was going to say 6/10. I don't think Behrens is going to force the issue just yet. I think now he knows it's a long race, settle into the rhythm. He's got 38 minutes to find a way through. Yeah,
what I was going to say is, right now, if you're Behrens, you just really don't need to do anything major. Panic stations are certainly not activated, although that little slip there. Just drive at 95%. You've got the pace to roll it down a little bit, and most importantly for Behrens right now is that he can see the race leader, and so there is no need to panic. For Benediktsson, when he was in second, I get the panic mode. Oh, it's a little bit of grass there on turn into Piratella. That is not what you want, and that is why you go a little bit wide there, and then tyres a little bit dirty on the exit. But yeah, you just don't, whilst you're sat there in second. For Benediktsson, he saw the pole time that Behrens put up, probably felt a bit desperate, a bit racy to get by. Behrens knows he's got the time in the pocket, so right now can honestly sit in second and just save himself. Not saving fuel, but saving your own mental focus.
Well, you say that, but by the time that you lose track of the car in front, I sometimes think it's too late to go to panic stations. I think you got to be thinking forward rather than, letting... Sometimes you let the race come to you. Sometimes you can't afford to do that, because by the time the race has come to you, it's too late. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those situations where you've got to balance the risk versus reward. Here's a replay of something that's happened to Alexander Vicious. Oh, he just makes a mess of the entry into that second chicane and slides, agonizing slide in through the gravel. And well, As soon as you hit that gravel, there's not much more you can do.
It's such a high-speed circuit. Oh, bit of a snap there from Benedictson, now going on the defence down into Villeneuve, back over, just squeezing a little bit. Behrens now starting to apply pressure himself. There's a big bit of curb though, and Behrens is going to go around the outside potentially.
You'll have to do it the long way around at Tosa, but maybe you can try the up and under. Get the run out of the corner, he's just a bit too far behind at Tosa. You said you can't make a move at Piratella, but he'll look once more, poke himself, outside line. Does he concede? He's gonna try and stick it there, runs a little bit wide, gives him the inside for Acqua Minerale.
Fantastic move all the way around the outside, like you say, to the inside. This was how they did it last time, and this was where he ran just a little bit wide, and once again, copy and paste, a little bit closer this time by Benedictson. Goes for the up and under and picks it up on the exit of Acqua Minerale. That was close to how it was in Acqua Minerale a few laps ago when they went side by side, and Behrens overdid it again. I think if he does it once more, if he gets to the inside of Acqua Minerale, he slows down a little bit more and pulls it right up onto the apex, essentially coming to a stop on the apex at the final part of Acqua Minerale, just to stop the cutback from happening.
But you know what we're seeing here, Lewis?
Good little battle.
Yeah, loving it. Loving it.
This is it. This is what we always say. You don't need a grid of 30. I've commentated on grids of 30 and the racing has been shocking. Whereas when you get a battle like this, they know that eyes are on, they know that we're focused on them, they know that they want to put on a good little battle. It might end in tears, it might end in a great victory.
Don't you say things like that.
It might.
You're just asking for the commentator's curse to come down.
You know what I believe about the commentators?
Yeah, but
no such thing.
I just don't believe you.
That's fair enough. I accept it.
I will say these GTE cars, well, they're unfortunately no longer really going to be the main face of sports car racing. Yes, we'll still see them in existence for Le Mans until next year, but very much it's the end of the era for these manufacturer-backed classes. That is Joachim Stottier just going a bit deep in through the final couple of corners. I said downhill braking zone. Sometimes you just snatch an inside wheel because no ABS in these cars either. And I think that's what might have happened to that Ferrari, but the Ferrari's out front. 3/10 separates them. And even though it's the end of the era, Lewis, I think we are going to look back and think about some of the great fights that we've seen. It might not have the depth in terms of the manufacturer backing like a GT3 class has seen, where you might have a Bentley versus an Acura versus a Nissan versus an Aston Martin. But you think about some of the battles that we've had between Porsche, BMW, Ferrari, and Aston Martin and Ford. You throw in the Corvette as well, which mainly competes in IMSA, and as done Le Mans, will be doing a full season of wet coming up this year as well. They're just fantastic cars.
There we go, side by side once again. Behrens going around the outside at Tamburello. This is going to be a bit of a brave move to try and send it in there. See how Benedictson leaves him with the apex. Little bit of side by side. A lot of respect given between the two of them. Desperate not to come to blows. Behrens retakes the race lead, and Benedictson once again coming back to the outside through Villeneuve and really is going to send it in. Gives him the inside for the next apex. Running out towards Tosa. Got to do the work around the outside.
And at least for now, I think signed and sealed, lead back to Behrens. But again, we got 32 more minutes of this. I'm knocking on wood because I know I might be the one now that puts the commentators. Surely this can't continue this frantic, this hectic. This is like a rallycross style of race right now.
Yeah, it's like a bit not elbows out is definitely the wrong way of saying it, but it's a bit desperate. That was very desperate there from Benedictson to dive in. Absolutely superb, but got to give a lot of respect to Behrens there to see that one coming and to not risk it more so than was required. Benedictson then straight back into the race lead. I think what we're seeing is, again, Behrens knows he's got the pace and is being a bit more patient. Benedictson is being a bit more desperate, knows it needs to stay in the race lead. And it's an interesting dynamic in this battle, an interesting dynamic that's given us a good 15 minutes nearly of entertainment here, and I hope will continue. By the way, to go back to the GTEs, I am devastated that GTEs will no longer exist after next year.
Devastated? Wow.
Devastated. I love GTEs. I think GTEs are sick. Devastated.
I'll be honest.
As if someone's robbed my family.
Yeah, I was going to say, it does sound like you're pretty upset. as we ride on board with the visor cam from Behrens. Look at him jink to the outside, but covered off once more. You know the reason why I really started getting into serious sim racing, Lewis? You'll never guess.
Was it GTEs?
It was when the Ford...
Daytona?
No, it was when the Ford and the Ferrari were first released, and the first time they ran in the 1,440 minutes in the French countryside. I decided to throw...
You've not been in sim racing for very long, have you?
I know. I just... You see what I did there. Well, no, to be fair, that's what made me really dive into it. I've had my iRacing account before that, but never really got the bug. Until that race, I threw a post on Reddit. I said, I'm looking for teammates. I want to do this 24-hour race. Who's in? And two people responded, one of whom I am still very good friends with, and you know, we do our team racing, well, as much as I race now, we do it all together and we chat daily, but the other guy not so nice, and I've never spoken to him since then. But that's what sim racing is about.
What was his name?
We're not going to go there. I'm not trying to get myself in trouble for doxing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I've said before, I've had to deal with a lot of people from sim racing, most of which have actually been positive encounters, and only one or two. There are only one or two really bad people that I could actually think of. So yeah, fair enough. I mean, GTEs, like I say, they are. I don't know. I can't even put my finger on really what it's fast GT3.
No, it's not just that they're faster. The balance of the car just feels more like a race car.
Yeah, I honestly I can't really explain it too much, but there is something special about a GTE versus a GT3. Maybe it's in the sense of, like, you know, GT3s, you see racing all over the place, right? You see racing in countless categories across the world. That it's kind of like, yes, GT3, I know what I'm getting. GTEs are a bit more special. They're a bit harder to find in the motorsports world. They don't really, you know, even when they were being raced at their height, you only really found them in a couple of series. And I kind of think, like, same as why I don't actually have the love for TCR that much. I love the touring cars. I don't really like TCR that much though, because I think it's not special. You know, it's you've got TCR, and that is a positive to it in a sense, because it means it is accessible. You've got WTCR, you've got TCR Germany, and you know the Benelux and various ones. We even have one in here in the UK, which obviously going against British touring cars was not a wise idea. But then if you counter that with other touring car categories like British touring cars, like V8 supercars and stuff, these ones, in my opinion, are superior because they are more special, they're more unique, they're more their own thing.
Well, okay, and to kind of give the counterpoint to what you're saying, they got a bit expensive.
Much more expensive. That's why TCR and GT3 are the future, and why they're going to stay around for a lot longer.
And I mean, it's even why GT4 became very popular, right? Because even GT3 was getting out of hands for the amateur gentleman driver to come in and do a full season. It was getting somewhat unrealistic, right? So GT4's been getting popular, but guess what happens? Manufacturers go and try and boost their profiles there and their programs there. GT4 gets expensive. Now that GT3 is going to be the main sports car frame of reference, it'll be interesting to see just how far it gets developed. Of course, with GTD Pro in America, Behrens trying to hang it around the long way around, but all that's going to happen there is disaster if he gets squeezed into those anti-cut curves. And once more, he has to back out.
Good cheeky little attempt there, just to give it a go, just to see, but still, eyes on the prize, focused on the race, focused on surviving right now, and not trying to do anything too silly around Benedictson right now. Maybe just trying to force a mistake, but mistakes, to be honest, between these two, if I'm going to give you a drive which I'm seeing more mistakes out of, it is out of Behrens. A little bit wide there at Tozer. Obviously the mistakes that allow Benedictson to get through. Looks a little bit faster, for starters. I'd say that Behrens does definitely look faster between the two, but does seem a little bit less in control of the car, potentially as a byproduct of that speed.
I feel like he's driving at 99%, whereas we're seeing Benedictson at 100, but a calm 100. Behrens is at 99, but just not in that same zen mode right now. As did look as though Benedictson got a little bit loose coming through Aqua Minerale, but gathered up that car, got it pointed back in a straight line, and nicely off the corner as well. I posed this question to everyone, Lewis, but
oh no.
iRacing seen that, you know, the influx of GT3 cars recently, the Lamborghini
Huracan.
Huracan.
You're asking which GT3?
Yes, no, but I'm not going to ask you just which GT3 you'd like to see added. I'm going to say, if you look backwards in time, which is one that you would have wanted to have seen added? Because there have been some fun ones that, you know, we don't no longer see race anymore. I think, of course, of the M6 GT3, which, I'm not going to lie, I'm a fan of.
Yeah, it's kind of, obviously, for ones that are currently in, right? I mean, unfortunately, it's the basic stuff. It's like, oh, I'd love to see a McLaren 720, because I think it's the one where it's kind of like you see it all over the place in, you know, in real world motorsport stuff. It's kind of like it does feel a bit odd having an MP412C, although I do love the MP4-12C.
The fire breathing.
Yeah.
Yes, you got to give it
honestly,
its correct thing.
It's things like a Bentley. I love myself a Bentley. Something big, something a bit different in the GT3. Whilst we've got so many GT3s, I think if you're going to even look back and add something, it needs to be something that's a little bit different to how the other ones are, right? You can't just go, oh, I'd love a different finish or something. It's like no. You need something that's completely different. That's why the Bentley's, Nissans, right? Those two, yes, just ridiculously big. Why not?
I kind of like the idea of the Acura as well.
Yeah, I do.
Which I know.
I'm driving next week.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say.
In a different race,
yeah, to your point though about it being different, it's not that different. I still want it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But to be fair though, the Acura, like, there is something a bit special about it. It is different in its own right. I can't. It's not because it's obviously the shape. It's a mid-engine. Like, yes, you put it in the same kind of categories as plenty of the other GT3s that we've got. But there is just, I don't know, you just don't see it that much. So, and it looks cool as.
It does. Oh, it does.
I'd absolutely take it. Yeah, no, we're racing it at Spa, and
more racing at Spa.
More racing at Spa. I told you it happens regardless. It always happens.
For those who are wondering why we're talking about that, Lewis and I were just talking on a different broadcast about how tracks like Spa, which are very special, don't get us wrong. I mean, there's a reason why, you know, hundreds of thousands of people go to Spa every year to see the different races happen. But when you have it so accessible on the sim, and especially here in iRacing, where it seems like there's a series that visits Spa once every week, or if, you know, once every couple of weeks, it just loses the charm. It loses that special touch.
But this even goes back to the whole GT3 and TCR thing that you said about it. The fact that you see it all over the place, it's just sort of like, yeah, well, I care less about it now because it's not special.
Exactly. Yeah.
In ovals, I love Homestead, right?
Yes.
And Homestead only comes up every now and then. It doesn't really. It sometimes doesn't come up every season. Homestead's brilliant. Love it. And so when you get the chance to race it, and it's sort of like, this is actually something special, something different. Whereas when you see Spa, it's just like, oh god, the car out Spa. Like, it's where it's too popular for its own good, and because of its popularity, it will end up losing its popularity because it's too popular. If you get where I'm coming from,
yes.
22.
It becomes less special. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
Here comes another look to the outside from Behrens, who's almost in the grass. Oh, really gets hung out to dry, and just. This is the type of racing you see in the real world, where both drivers know they can't afford to make contact. It's not always what we expect to see in sim racing, but this is fantastic.
That was a big send around the outside from Jakob Behrens. Now, Benedictson, who's been desperate before, is desperate again. Dives straight on the inside, locks up a little bit. Behrens reads that one perfectly. Incredible. That was superb from Behrens, just to see it, just to spot that lockup. And not to try and force, already getting a sorry between the two of them in game, by the way. So clearly they're both, you know, understanding what this battle's about. It's about a bit of respect between two people. Little bit over the line there from Benedictson, and Idzi just like, yep, that was on me. Carry on.
That's great. This is a showcase of what sim racing is really about. None of that sort of interesting things that we had in that broadcast that we just finished, Lewis. This is great.
Yeah, like you say, it's respect. I think it's one thing that we lose in sim racing more so, and this comes down to a lot of things, i.e. as a discussion that we had last week on the VCO ERWC about if you have a real-world motorsport or, say, for example, a LAN event where everyone's in the same area together, post-race, you can go and have a conversation with that person. And honestly, it does change how you race them. because you race them with a bit more respect, because you can't just close down Discord and move away, right?
Run
You've kind of got to deal with it. Yeah, exactly.
No, yep.
You've got to deal with it. Now, in that sense, it's something that we miss because we don't really have that in sim racing, and so people don't necessarily respect each other. Whereas quite clearly this battle, whether they've known each other for 100 years or whether they've just met each other on track for the first time, I wouldn't know. But if there is one thing which is obvious straight away, is there is respect between the two.
Best quote I've ever heard in sim racing is from a world championship driver. In iRacing, the worst thing about sim racing is I can't go and punch someone after the race.
Yeah.
Goes back to your point about LAN events and things like that. And while physicality is, something some may associate more with a NASCAR or maybe even dirt racing, like the ovals here in America, where there's been some rather unsightly and unseemly moments, especially in recent memories as well. But it's passion. That's what we love about racing, is that passion and that want to be on top and that want to win, no matter what. I mean, we've seen that with the pro real world drivers coming over to the sim world over the last couple of years, and they get frustrated just like we do when we're not quick, when we suddenly look at a Josh Rogers or a Sammy Matty Trogan and can't figure out why we're suddenly slower than them because we just want to go fast.
Yeah, it's it really isn't like an easy one. I was having a chat with a couple of real racing drivers about this. The idea of coming into sim racing and struggling on speed, and they were sort of like, sim races when it comes to like their speed, it's ridiculous and it's metronomic. Like even more so than it is in real life. It is genuinely concerning. But then in racecraft, it was like there's almost a bit too much respect. And I was like, nah, trust me, I've seen some rubbish in my time.
Yeah.
But it's where like a sim race will be like, yeah, but that's sort of my corner to be able to get on the inside.
You said the my corner words. We're talking about F1 now.
Hate it. Absolutely hate it. But that's fine. I can just open my steering up whenever I want. That's fine. It's good.
And talking about that crossover, virtual to reality, which we're seeing a number of drivers starting to do. Moritz Lohner, I think, is one of the biggest examples. Someone who basically no experience in real-world motorsports before he got to step into a GT4 car, a DTM Trophy. Barron's very loose on the engine after Minerali, gathers it up. No major damage done there. But the thing that Moritz Lohner learned that very first weekend, Lewis, yes, he got a podium. But the other thing was that with a real racing driver, if you're on the outside, they will run you off the road.
Yeah, it's, again, I know obviously Jimmy Broadbent, another one who's gone from sim into real, slightly different side of real, but obviously racing in Praga over in Britcar and stuff, as well as doing like the odd bit. And he said kind of very similar thing in the sense of like in the real world racing, like they don't care. It's like you kind of think it's like, yeah, but what about the repair bill? And all that. So like, yeah, no, I'm opening the steering, and they will run you out to drive. They will dive down the inside from a mile back. It is ruthless on the racetrack how aggressive people are in real life, and it's kind of one of those things that I don't think we necessarily expect so much in sim racing, because I think having spoken to these people, it's not as obvious as you think it is, because you don't really see it so much. Like you don't, not that you don't see it, but you kind of don't really understand it so much when it's not as tangible as sim racing, where you can just jump behind the wheel and get racing and kind of understand how it works.
Absolutely. Well, about halfway through this race now. 17 minutes still to go. We do have live race control, I should point that out as well. They've been called into action once, although it's not really a decision that has changed the standings here. We have stewards that have real FIA stewards in the booth as well, so always great to get that level of participation and adjudication as well. I mean, race control is the most thankless job in motorsports, be it virtual or real.
Have you ever been a steward?
I have. I hate it.
Yeah. No, I was a steward in a racing league called Top Step Racing League. Great times. It was our own little V8 supercars thing, and I was like, look, I'll be one of the stewards. I'll help us out. And there was three of us, and we were all discussing it, and I did it for 1 season, and I said I would never do it again. So then 5 years later, I tried again. Lol. You'd be shocked at what happened. I hated it straight away. I said I'd never do it again. It is horrible because with every decision you make, a bit too much curb there.
Yep.
Seen that a little bit from Behrens actually. Taking a bit too much curb there.
Yeah, right here, and you can see that anti-cut curve. You go up in the air, you lose all directional control, and from there, well, Haraldson was stricken in the middle of the track with that Porsche 911 RSR. Sorry, go back to what you're saying about stewarding.
It's horrible because every decision you make, you're irritating someone because either the penalty is too harsh and the person that you're penalising isn't happy with it, or it's not harsh enough and the person that reported it is no longer happy with it, and then, oh, God forbid you say it was a racing incident. And it's just like those things. You need to basically not care what people think, which means you need to accept that you're going to be hated. Now, there aren't many people that I know that will genuinely just be like, I don't really care if I'm hated or not. And that's the kind of thing like you need to be when you're in race control. You need to make those objective calls one way or the other. And God forbid it's watched by a large audience that then have an opinion as well. And that if you get it wrong, they also hate you. And I'm not trying to make this about the most recent F1 because, let's be honest,
let's not open that can of worms.
But it's, it is kind of one of those things that you do need to think about, like, in sim racing where there's a driver who's named Igor Rognikov, who you commentated on a little bit in VCO ERWC, and is a very quick driver, very, very aggressive, and has received a few penalties and stuff. And then the race control have had people meshing them, being like, that's unacceptable. These people that have nothing to do with the race league, they're just fans of Igor Rognikov.
Yeah.
And they're meshing race control, being like, no, that's not acceptable. Accept race control's decision. It's fine.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. The people who step in and add their opinions when really there's only one person's opinions that really matter, and that's the one that made the decision.
Yeah.
For those wondering what this is, by the way, this is the Reykjavik International Games, a multi-sport celebration of sport. Yes, I realize how that sounds, and it's not just things in the real world like darts, weightlifting, swimming, etc., but now embracing esports, not just sim racing, but we had a League of Legends competition as well. It's always great to see institutions like this realizing the future of sports is virtual. Gap is starting to build up. Behrens has got the jitters out from under him. He's now 1 second clear of Benediktsson.
Yeah, like I say, I was just about to pick up on the fact that Behrens was starting to light this up a little bit, starting to make a bit of a gap. And this is kind of why Benediktsson was a little bit more aggressive earlier on, was just trying to keep in contention. But now that gap starts to build, it's starting to just slip through the fingers. And when it does so, you start to lose the slipstream, you start to lose the concentration, lose the focus, and then that gap will extend quite a bit. Basically, what I'm saying is over the next couple of laps, that gap will either stay exactly as it is. So it's a really stupid point. It'll stay exactly as it is. It'll come down or it'll go bigger. Right? Yes, that is an unbelievably
incredible
thing to say. You know what I mean? Like, either he's going to close that one down quite quickly, or it is going to balloon massively, i.e. be out to even like 6, 7, 8 seconds by the end of the race. So forgive me for the really stupid point. That is top tier right there.
Yes, you're talking to 2020 VCO Simi Award winner Lewis McLeod.
Well, that's bad.
Yeah, no, add that to your show reel, why don't you?
I've said some dumb things on air. I really have. That is that's up there.
Is that?
I'm wondering what the stupidest thing that I've ever said on.
Yeah, I was going to say what. Yeah, I've said some silly things as well. Although, to be honest, most of the silly things I say are usually when I have to do math and I'm wrong.
Oh, yeah, no, I've had a few of those. There was one race where I was trying to do the numbers on how many stints. This was at the SimGrids VCO World Cup Spa 24 last year, and I tried working out how many pit stops it would be to the end of the race. And I put it all together and stuff, and I then said it on broadcast, and only when I'd left my stint did I realise. I was like,
no.
Oh, I was doing that calculation, but for some reason I took 2 hours out of the equation. So I was like, they've got 2 more stops to go. It's 5 hours left in the race.
Never trust a commentator's math.
It was so bad. It was honestly, when I realised, I was like, wow, that is embarrassing. Also concerning that no one went, Lewis, you're talking rubbish.
Yeah, no, that's the other thing that I'd like to say. By the way, confirmation that the number 4, Alexander Vicious, did get a stop-and-go penalty for the lap 1 incident that we saw. Again, there is race control. If Behrens and Bendixson close up and come to blows, will our champion be decided by the stewards? You'd hope not, but at least for now, Behrens, bit by bit, edging clear. 2 Ferraris out front. Chevrolet sits in 3rd. That's C8R. Ferrari 4th, Porsche 5th, Chevrolet in 6th. I mean, as this GTE era winds to a close, Lewis, what's your favorite GTE car?
It depends. From visuals or from driving?
How about you give us your answer for each of those categories?
For driving, I've always driven the M8. Do like the M8. Certainly doesn't win my call of visuals,
yep.
Unless BMW give me one.
Yes, no, BMW.
If pull us out.
Yep.
Visually, though, I mean, I like the Ferrari, but it's a Ferrari. For me, honestly, Porsche. Yes, it looks like a Porsche, but it's the sound.
No love for the Aston. No love for the Ford here.
I never really liked the Ford. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, I never. I thought the front looks great. The rear is just not pretty.
To be fair, is it really a GT car? I mean,
yeah, it's almost like a prototype.
Yeah, they really did bend the rules there as much as they could. And then not only did they bend the rules, they deployed the sandbags in the first running.
Yeah, they did. They deployed them hard. Astons, I'm okay with. I'm not like overwhelmed by an Aston, to be honest. Particularly the front end. It looks all right, but then sometimes I look at it and be like, oh, and I'm like, oh, that looks all right, and I'm like, oh. I'm never really sure.
Are we revoking your British citizenship?
Probably. Yeah, but let's be honest. Is it really a British car?
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
That's the thing. Even the Bentley, it was like, oh, you don't like a Bentley? I'm like, yeah, but Bentley's like, if you're going to pull the whatever country card, I was like, it's not a British car, it's German.
8 minutes to go in this race. I have a soft spot for the way the Ford drove.
I never drove it.
Really?
Yeah, never have. I only really drive the Porsche with the BMW.
So it does drive more like a prototype than a GT car, if we're being completely honest. I don't know. That was always my car.
What about on sound?
Oh,
because to me, in sound, there is only one winner.
Which is?
The Porsche. The sound of that thing.
I was going to say, do we include the C7R?
Ooh,
yeah,
that is quite a rumble. That is quite a... I still think it's the scream of the Porsche 911.
And that Porsche is loud. It is loud, I've heard.
Well, there was a video that I have seen one of them drive. I saw it drive around Brands, but it was never really at full chat, so I don't really classify it as being the same thing. But I've seen a video from Le Mans at the final corner as a prototype comes through. And you can already hear there is an absolute scream,
a wail
of a Porsche,
yeah,
and then suddenly it comes into shot, and it's like it's all you can hear. There's other cars, like it's halfway down a straight, and another prototype has come through. You can still only really hear the Porsche. Nice. Such an incredible noise, but noise we're not going to hear anymore. Sad.
I think if I'm going by sound, I personally am likely to just say C7R.
The C7R did sound, as the cool kids would say, sick.
Sick, yes. Don't they say that's cap now or something like that?
That's cat. Is that the thing? What's the? That slaps. That was
yes, that's it. Yeah, that slaps. 2.5 second the gap. Behrens has got that car under control and it's running away with 6 minutes to go. Should be 4, maybe 5 laps left. But from now to the end, Behrens just needs to keep that car under his control and should be good to the checkered flag.
At least one of the 3 things I said would happen has happened. Either the gap's going to stay the same, it's going to balloon, or it's going to get closer.
It was a 33% chance for each one of them.
Yeah, I really hedged my bet. That is called sitting on a fence right there.
Yeah, you got splinters, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was it was pretty bad, but it is starting to balloon a little bit. I think it will go out, to be honest, even around like close to 5 seconds by the end of the race, depending on how Benedictson can keep his focus as well. It's really hard. When that gap started to slip out, once you've been so focused for 40 minutes on that car ahead and that gap's getting bigger, it is honestly really, really hard to
Why is he
find
flashing the lights?
Trying to distract, having a bit of a disco.
No, but the car in front is the one flashing the lights, Lewis.
Oh, wrong push to talk button?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I've told you this story before, haven't I? I did a race with an Aston Martin factory driver, a charity race last year or the year before, one of the two. It was in the HPD, the LMP2 car at Le Mans, and he gets into the car, starts flashing the lights, and we're asking him, why are you flashing the lights, mate? Because we got messages from other teams. It's not like we were just asking him. We got messages from other teams saying, can you stop flashing the lights? And the problem was his push to talk was bound to the same button as his flashing headlights.
Yeah, that is pretty bad.
I still think if you're a World Championship driver, you should bind the flashing light button to your throttle pedal.
I mean, it should just always be on. I've told you the story of Spa, I'm sure, a few times in the real world, 24 Hours of Spa, because I love telling the story when it comes to light flashing.
Dennis Lynn story.
It is the Dennis Lynn story. For anyone who doesn't know, Dennis Lynn was taking part in this, was the 2020 24 Hours of Spa, and heard... Oh, I'm hearing a bit of a slide from someone, having a bit of a...
Oh, it's Benedictson. Benedictson's off.
There we go.
There we go. Day done.
Did hear it come through the back of shot. There you go. It's ballooned. See, I told you. But no, Dennis Lynn. He pressed his flash button. Now the thing is the flash in a GT3 is a macro, right? So you press it, and then it will go flash, 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 as it does even for these guys. And like, it's an automated system. What he didn't realise though is that it stacks.
Oh yes, I remember this.
And so press, and it flashed for the entire lap. Way too much grass on turning. Tried getting on the brakes, and the rear end just like I told you, concentration.
Yeah. No, and I think he was just. Does he have damage on the left side of the car as well?
Yeah, there is damage. Yeah.
Yeah. One more.
Where would that have been though?
That's what I was.
Curb.
Ah, yes, it is very easy, and you can see that. That is definitely some damage to the right front. And well, as soon as you touch the grass, grass might as well just be ice in this. Track condition, in the state of the track and where we are, means 3 minutes on the clock. Behrens walks away. So it stacks. And so how long was it flashing for?
At night, the entire lap at Spa, whilst trying to battle. Now, not only was he not very happy with it, but the other GT3s were also less than pleased. I don't think the TV people were particularly happy either.
Yes, suboptimal for everyone.
Yeah, that is absolutely suboptimal. Less than ideal.
Less than ideal. Oh, and I'm just now imagining the disco that he tried to try and find his way through, because I mean, at Spa, it's not like you have much lighting around the track, so you're basically dependent on those headlights to find your braking zones and whatnot.
I mean, I honestly can't tell you how difficult that must have been, because, like you say, you lose reference into the corner, and basically your eyes will start to struggle, because like you're constantly having to go from darkness to light, darkness to light, darkness to light, and your eyes can handle that a little bit, but the more it happens, the more your eyes just like, nah, I'm out. I'm not having any of this, and so it would get harder and harder and harder as the stint would go on. Are we going to have one more lap, or are we going to have two? That is the question. With the time left to go, it should just be the one. Oh. It is pretty close.
I tell you what, if Behrens is listening in, just slow down. Make sure this is the final lap. Don't put yourself in a position to make anything happen, because all you can do by going one lap longer is make a mistake and lose yourself the win here.
And you've got to ask yourself, is it worth the risk? Because honestly, those things are very, very easy. By the way, it was Joachim's daughter who he should put a lap on as she drops down now to be the just the top three then, the third car a lap down, just the top three on the lead lap in this race. She's had a few issues through this race, but to be fair, based on how it was in qualifying, it's done well to move up, and also had a good opening lap to get up into that fourth spot that she's not really properly let go of throughout the race. Behrens, though, like I say, roll it down a little bit, drive around it again, roll it back to 90% even at this point. You've got 10.5 seconds, make it easy.
Through Aqua Minerale, will it be the final time? Will he have one more lap? We will find out. And what a battle it was, Lewis. I mean, regardless of the fact that Behrens won, Benediktsson, those first 20, 30 minutes, some incredible battling.
I've got to say, I think Benediktsson overdrove it a lot, which, honestly, from my point of view, is a huge shout-out that in 45 minutes to have overdriven it that much and to have still only had one major mistake over the race. I think that is impressive.
Well, there we go. It is the final lap, and the Reykjavik International Games Digital Motorsports Champion for 2022 will be Jakob Behrens. It was a fantastic fight between him and Benediktsson, but ultimately Behrens' pace proved to be just that little bit too much. And again, you only need two cars to put on a show, and a show we had indeed.
It certainly was a nice, impressive one. Benediktsson overdrove it a couple of times. Behrens managed to hang on. Jökulsson had a bit of a slow race just directly by herself. But Behrens, based on how it was in qualifying, based on how it was in practice, and over the start of this race, got to say, very worthy winner of this race. Although, to be fair, with that battle between Behrens and Benediktsson, either one of them would have been worthy, and both of them did put on a brilliant show for us.
And it goes to show, just like you said, Lewis, I don't know if it was today or in an earlier broadcast that we had, qualifying pace is not everything.
Yeah. And it also takes two to tango. I think that's the big thing. It does take two to tango. You can't just have a good race by yourself. It does require other people, and that is exactly what we got. And more sort of respect between these two on the cool-down lap. I hope we see more of this style of battling in sim racing. Just again, the respect between the two of them. You only tend to see it though in more lower formula and stuff. Once there starts being big prizes and stuff up for grabs, everyone starts elbowing each other off the track. So it's good to see two drivers with that respect.
Yeah, no, I think you're right as well. It's something that sim racing as a whole really could benefit from, is that little bit of more respect being shown between the various competitors. Here's a quick look then at those race results. Behrens from Benediktsson and Jökulsson, but the rest of the drivers not on the lead lap. Only one penalty as well, but that was the good thing about having live race control. But with that said, it is time to wrap things up here for the 2022 Reykjavik International Games Digital Motorsports Cup. A fascinating battle with plenty of twists and turns, but it's Jakob Behrens that is your winner here from Imola in the GTE cars. On behalf of the entire team at RaceBot TV, we thank you for joining us here live from the virtual Imola circuit. We've had TV cameras brought to us by Dougie Beard, live timing powered by our partners at Timing 71, with graphics provided to us by ATVO. For Lewis McLeod, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Congratulations to Jakob Behrens, winner in the Reykjavik International Games.